Ben Orkey says, stories can what? Conquer fear, you know. They can make what? The heart bigger. There's three things I want to talk to you today about stories. And if my voice is a little graspy, it's because I was getting over a flu. But it's okay. Sometimes when my voice happens, I have usually a deep voice. It gets sexy, so it's okay. But there's three things about stories I want to talk to you about today. The first part about a story is that, as Ben Orkey says here, he is a post-colonial, post-modern African poet, world-renowned, that stories help us conquer, first, stories help us conquer fear and even shame. When we watch story, we don't talk propositionally, meaning people don't tell us things. We see experience, and we relate to it. And through this experience, what we feel is a connection. What is the most powerful thing about story that conquers fear or shame? Well, the most powerful moments in cinema or when you read a story, when you watch a story, is when you realize that this character is going through what I'm going through. And then you realize you're not the only one struggling. That you're not the only person thinking of this, struggling with this, going through this. And there's a sense of emotional cleansing that takes place as a result. Especially in our current climate in our country, where the racial tension and the social animosity here in the States and abroad is rising with great alarm and great velocity. What more do we need today than the first part of a story? A bigger heart. Tell someone next to you, a bigger heart. Oh, that's cute, guys. Yeah, what more than anything we need today here in the city particularly are people with bigger hearts. People that not judge across the aisle or red states or blue states or religion, but people that actually stop and listen to human experience. And that's why we do these movies at our church. We want to value storytellers. We want to value stories. And sometimes it's better to show it on the screen than to tell you it, assert it. Because stories help us conquer shame and fear. That's the first thing about stories. The second thing about stories, let's put this up here, is that stories give us courage. Story is actually what defeated fascism and Hitler during World War II. Winston Churchill called out to the United States for aid during a fierce battle where, really, World War II, if you watched Amazon, a new show, Man at the High Castle, amazing show. What could have happened if Hitler and fascism ruled the day? They were winning. Hitler was conquering Europe, all of Europe, and the only isolated nation left was the United States. And because of George Washington's position of isolationism, which our country tends to hold at that time, not anymore, of course, as the only remaining superpower left, they had a very hard time with public opinion about what America should do with the rise of Hitler and fascism. Should America bow out of the battle and remain neutral? But there's a powerful man by the name Charlie Chaplin. How many people know Charlie Chaplin? You love him. Amazing prophetic voice. Charlie Chaplin decided that he could not remain neutral as an artist. And sometimes artists are the only ones that speak the truth because they have no one to please except the audience, public opinion. You know, sometimes you'd rather just listen to comedians rather than the CNN or Fox News. They tell you the truth, and they tell you as it is. But Charlie Chaplin decided to create this film called Charlie Chaplin, the Great Dictator. And what he did, essence, in this film, using humor, was to humanize Hitler. Because you see, to Americans and to Europe and to most of the world, Hitler and fascism, he looked like a demigod. It was believed in popular opinion at that time that Hitler could not lose. But when Charlie Chaplin humanized Hitler, made fun of Hitler, America began to grow a consciousness that he's just a man with a bad philosophy and doing terrible things. And the U.S. eventually, through popular opinion, supported the war. And Winston Churchill got the support he needed, and Hitler and fascism was defeated. Amen. Let's give Charlie Chaplin a hand. Story not only helps you conquer fear and shame, it helps you, it gives you courage. And that's why we want to tell these stories, because sometimes we can't say the things that happened to us, that we went through. Sometimes we have to tell it in different expressions. That's why, once again, I just want to thank all the people that participated in this film. Henry, where's Henry? Yeah. Henry, stand up. Our devil's present here, guys. In the flesh. Will you rise? Will you rise? Anyone else that was in the film, can you stand for a second? If you were in the film, you're extra, you want you to stand up. All right. All right, guys. You know, acting, and I just want to say, acting is not for people that want to be famous. Because a lot of people go, yeah, you just want to be an actor because you want to be famous. Because remotely, you're not going to be famous. They're not going to even pay you. Well, they might pay you in pizza. Yes. It's not glamorous, and it's not always fun. You know, artists do what they do, like Charlie Chaplin did. He took a risk because they care about stories. They care about human interactions. And I want to tell all the actors, all the creatives, thank you so much for honoring those values so that we can have the courage and to conquer fear and shame. So let's thank them one more time. Okay. All right. So we said that story has the power to help us conquer fear and shame. Story gives us courage. And lastly, the third thing is why we're here. We're talking about how story confronts our reality. Sometimes the arc in a story, like in Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol, a character will literally alter their reality of their existence by seeing a mirror of who they've become. And stories have a profound way, and this has happened for centuries, of changing our lives, confronting us with our own bigotry, with our own narrow-mindedness, with our own prejudice. Mark Twain said that, right? Travel, exploration is the end of bigotry, narrow-mindedness, and prejudice. And why this particular story? Why are we interested as a church in stories, especially in the paranormal? Why do we want to show a movie and put all this energy, all this little money we have, all the pizza, into telling this particular story? Well, because I believe the paranormal, or demonology, or the supernatural, many different names, metaphysical, confronts our reality. And sometimes we don't have chance to think about that reality. You know, C.S. Lewis said in Screwtape, which is a fictional character about a devil that talks to his nephew, how to seduce humanity. He says that it's so funny that human beings always think of us putting things in people's minds, when in reality our best work is keeping things out. Everybody say, oh snap. Oh my God, okay, I know. You got that one. I'm telling you, we don't think about certain things because of lunch, right? Or the notification on your phone goes off, your friend says something stupid and put it on Facebook. You know, look at my lunch, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And you're contemplating existence, existentially contemplating, why am I here? And then lunch, and bam, no more thinking. So why do we do a film on the paranormal? It's to help us confront our reality. What is reality? What is truth? And what better place to start that than another British theologian, author, and professor at Oxford at one point, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. And in the series, the Voyage of the Dawn Treader, This is what C.S. Lewis says in the story, and I put it for you, but let me just read you the quote, and this is the scene. How many people actually read this book or seen this movie? Okay, you're a sinner. If you're a Christian, you see this, you're a sinner, okay? Read the book, watch the movie, okay? And this is the part of the story, and it says, Lewis says, most of us know what we should expect to find in a dragon's lair. But as I said before, Eustace had read only the wrong books. They had a lot to say about exports and imports and governments and dreams, but they were weak on dragons. This story is about Eustace. He's now the main character in this scene, as Edmund and Lucy will fade into the background in the new series. And he is supposed to be, as he gets transported into this world called Narnia that Lewis creates, where Aslan, who represents Jesus, is in, he is a skeptical person. He doesn't believe in magic and fairies or any type of supernatural or metaphysical or paranormal. It's kind of similar to Manhattan, where you have bankers and, we major in economics right here in the campus. And but here's the thing, and why we bring up the paranormal. We think we're the experts in the paranormal, right? We have the Bible. So, if you're doing an exorcism, and I don't know, the 5-7 movies they have on exorcism and conjuring, okay? Listen, economics is not going to help you with an exorcism, okay? It's just, the devil's not interested in money. And why we bring this up is because we're saying, are you adequate in thinking about the paranormal or the supernatural? Because all the great training you have, men's fitness and being fit and being smart and medicine and lawyering, which is a dying profession. But, but they're trying to revive it with suits. But, do you have the adequate tool to think about the paranormal in a plausible way to really make sense of confronting your reality? And a lot of times I think what a lot of people do that live in the city, that were once Christian, one's going to church, one's not. Some completely left and you drifted away. Now, this is kind of what the story's about. Eustace is us, right? We think we know reality. We think we know everything. We know exports and imports. But Lewis says, well, in this scenario, you're inept. And that's why I think it's so important as people who went to church, who don't go to church, who's completely full-blown atheist, skeptic, whatever it is, to ask yourself this question on Halloween, paranormal. And I think there's no better place to start than the man that's responsible for the whole history of the Bible, really. He began anything we know about Jesus, anything we know about the prophets, anything we know about ancient Mesopotamia, anything we know about the laws, the Jews. Every single religion, monotheism, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, all come from this man, Moses. And I want to do this, and I want to do it clear, because I think a lot of times you go to church kind of like in a perfunctory way. You go in and out. It sort of becomes like ritual, You just like the person next to you who's lifting their hands, like Jesus, and you're just like, what is the guy doing? And it sort of becomes a ritual-based, a moral-based ritual for a lot of Christians, that it just becomes what I do. It's no longer my reality. It doesn't even reflect my reality. It's just what I do now. And there's periods that goes in and out of doubts. Is God even real? Is it even silly to believe in God in the sky? And I heard it in brunches, especially men brunches, during weddings, where doctors and lawyers and bankers, of course them, always ask the question, how do you really know that this is real? That this is just not ritual. This is not just morality. This is just not a good story. I said, well, it's a terrible story if it's not real. And we talk about these things. And I think it's important to confront that reality. So let's start with Moses. Because Moses wrote all of the first 5 books of the Bible. Moses wrote the Torah, the Jewish book. Moses wrote the story of creation. Moses wrote Noah. Moses wrote Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The God of the Israelites, the God of the Jews. The story of Exodus, the laws, Levitical laws, all Moses. But why it's important to study Moses, I think, particularly today, is because those three stories converge in Moses' life. Moses had fear and shame he had to conquer. You're going to see that in this text. Moses particularly needed courage because of the things that he feared. And lastly, he was confronted with reality. Okay, so let's read this text. So, here it is. So Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Now this is the famous burning bush experience. Moses saw through the bush was on fire, but it did not burn up. He was amazed by that. So Moses thought, I will go over there and see this strange sight. See, you see that? Moses is an empiricist. He's an empiricist. Look, he's testing what's going on. So Moses goes, and when the bush does not burn up, when the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am your God, your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. And then the Lord brought up the misery of his people in Egypt. I have heard them crying because of their slave drivers. I am concerned about their suffering. Okay, now here is why you want to ask about, and why you want to start with Moses, and why this is critically important to start with. Moses is in a unique position, right? Because at this part of Moses' story in Exodus 3, what you see is him disappear, desolate for 40 years away from Egypt. I mean, you watch Disney, you know that they made something called the Prince of Egypt. Moses is in a very unique position historically. Tell someone next to you historically. Okay, now I want to, so we don't get confused, okay? Okay, we're not going to confuse this. Okay, just because something is historical doesn't mean that it has historicity. You're like, wow, that's confusing. Okay, but just follow me. Something could be considered historical, but not actually happen. And why Moses is important to differentiate between Moses' historicity as a person versus being historical, because something historical could be a myth, could be a legend. And why it's important for you to understand Moses' historicity, that he was an actual person that actually lived, is because he is the only one in the Bible that can confront our reality about this God that everybody believes in, most of the world. Almost 6 billion people believe in the God of Moses. Almost everyone. In fact, why ISIS is so upset is because we take Moses' laws too lightly. We're watching too much Netflix. So they decided to cyberbomb it. Okay, that's a speculation. I don't know for sure. So the historicity of Moses is important because you need to know Moses' position. Because Moses says in the Bible, I mean, I could come today and meet someone new and go, hey, my name is Pastor Sam. I'm the humblest person on the earth. What will be your reaction? You don't look humble at all. I get that a lot. You don't look humble. I'm like, but I am. Moses writes in the Pentateuch that he's the most humblest person on the earth. Who writes that? How could you write you're the humblest person on the earth? But then you have to actually take that critically and analyze it through the lens of history. Because look, Moses is in a very unique position, right? Not only is he really Jewish, so his covenant or his heritage is apart from the Jews, which starts with Abraham in Genesis 12 in ancient Mesopotamia. Ancient Mesopotamia is Iraq, right? Where all the problems are right now. With Syria, right in that border, right in that place. So his heritage is Jewish from this God of Yahweh they talk about, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But because of what happened in Egypt, where Joseph was the last prince who helped Pharaoh overcome a famine and became a prince, and eventually all the Israelites grew in Egypt and eventually became slaves, Moses, who was in fear of being, all the kids were at one point in genocide. The Pharaoh wanted to kill all the Jewish children at one point because they were growing and outnumbering Pharaoh. His mother did not do that. She put him in the Nile River, and it says that the princess of Pharaoh's house picked him up and adopted him, okay? So that's very important to understand too. So he's a child cross-culturally in intersection between Jewish and Pharaoh and Egypt. And that's very important, unique position, because at this time in history, Egypt is the main civilization of the world. Okay? You hear about the 7 wonders of the world, the pyramids. How many people are interested in the pyramids? I look at the pyramids, I'm like, wow. The pyramids in Cairo. We still can't figure it out, how it's done. Their trigonometry was so amazing. Their math was crazy. They would kick Asians' butts in math. Even in Singapore, they would beat them. It's still hard for us to triangulate a way to create the pyramids. It's difficult for us. So Egypt, if you study historically, had the most advanced technology the world has ever seen. So when you talk about someone like Moses writing the Bible, if God could choose anyone, someone credible with historicity, someone who actually was informed. Okay, he wasn't just a farmer, down anywhere, just tending sheep. He was educated in the house of Pharaoh. So he knew things not a lot of people knew. He knew, for example, math. He knew how they built the pyramids. He also knew time. Egyptians created a way to keep time. The lunar calendar is created by we basically stole all their ideas in the end of the day. Medicine also comes from there. Mummification, studying the body. So a lot of people, and some whacked out theories out there, which I think are pretty interesting. If you watch Netflix, a lot of people think that they go, you see what happened was ancient aliens came to Egypt. It's like the movie Stargate, which is one of my favorite movies. That they came and built the pyramids and gave this technology to these people. And there are ancient alien theorists that actually believe that the pyramids were created. Because, can you explain how they were created? I'm like, no. You go, there's aliens. Just like the Predator, an alien. That happened. And so there are theories like that, but they stem because of the high advanced technology that Egypt had in irrigation, technology, even created some sort of battery, electricity. They were advanced. So meaning Moses knew a lot about science, or the culmination of science that the world has achieved so far. So you have to understand his awkward position as the Prince of Egypt, and also now a runaway fugitive who killed a soldier because he wanted to help his people, but he messed up. And now he's here out nowhere. So think about Moses' mindset, right? First, how could the God of the universe be God of slaves? Right? If you believed in God and you saw your people enslaved, building the pyramid, you would be like, well, I don't think that God's real. But then in Egypt, Pharaoh was basically saying to people that he's a god too, a demigod, a sun god. But then Moses was, in the house. He heard him pass gas. He saw him go to the bathroom, had diarrhea one time. Moses had a very unique perspective about who people were and who people weren't. So Moses, until this point in history, Exodus 3, is a full-blown nominal atheist. It says that in this text that his father-in-law was a priest of Midian. Moses was the type of guy that would look at his father doing those rituals, in the desert, and he would just roll his eyes. This guy's an idiot. Does he know I could create batteries? And so he was a cynic, a skeptic of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob because they were enslaved. He knew that this hoopla right now, in that campfire they made, his father-in-law out there, they had no idea what they're doing. And so he was found as an atheist. He goes, and he lost meaning of life. Why? Because he was the Prince of Egypt. Now he's a fugitive out of nowhere in the desert, tending sheep until this moment. the burning bush moment. See, Moses wasn't an idiot. He wasn't gullible. He wasn't stupid. He's seen everything. Actually, he's the only person uniquely positioned to tell history because he's the only one that knew both sides. And a convergence took place at this moment. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his people that were enslaved, for a moment when the burning bush happened, he realized, OMG, if he had text, that's what I put in text. OMG to his wife. God is real. That's why he tested burning bush. He's like, wait, that should be gone. He was thinking scientifically about that. And what does the text say? The text says what? Take off what? Your Asia Minor right here, see? Jesus got Asian. Take off your shoes. It's cultural. No, that's not why. God says take off your shoes because this was Moses' first worship service. For real anyway. Not perfunctory one. Not the one that you do lip service. Not the one you do ritual. No, God said take off your shoes because Moses was experiencing for the very first time the real God. He was confronted with reality. Until this point, he was an atheist. He didn't know what he was. But he knew for sure that Pharaoh wasn't God. And he wasn't certain that his tribal, nomadic tribe that came to Egypt for refuge at one point, descendants of Joseph, had the real God either. But this convergence took place in his life. And there he was, taking off his shoes, bowing before the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And you go, well, how do I know this story's true? Well, he's the one that wrote the story. Clearly, because everybody was enslaved, they were building the pyramids. They had no time to write the story. And before Egypt, there was actually no technology to write or keep records. Who created that? Egypt. Oh, yeah. Papyrus paper. They created it. Keeping records. Hieroglyphics. Oh, yeah, Egypt created it. So if you want to write an actual account of things, Moses is actually one of the few people that could do it. Before that, so you go, how do I know then? How does Moses know the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? That was like thousands of years ago. Well, because until Moses, everybody said things orally. He's the only one that actually wrote it down. Because he's the only one that could. Technology hasn't advanced up to that point yet. Moses tells a story about his encounter with reality. And that's why we do this every year. We want the Bible to confront your reality. Because you might have gone to church before. This might just be all ritual. People who worship, by your side, lifting your guns. And you don't get it. But what if Moses' story is true? From his position, it confronts his reality. This is what Lewis says as we conclude today. C.S. Lewis says, faith is the art of holding onto things your reason once accepted in spite of your changing moods or circumstances. Faith is the art of holding onto things reason once accepted in spite of your changing moods. People talk about evolution. People talk about, is the earth 7 days old? We know it's billions of years old. We talk about, hey, what about this scientific question and that scientific question? So once you had faith and now you don't have it anymore, you're about to lose it. You're not sure, teetering in doubt. It doesn't have to be either or. It's a journey. For Moses, he was an atheist until it all what? Converged. Until something held it together that converged and made sense. And that's the journey we're inviting you to, whether you're a believer or a seeker, to be confronted with that reality. And that's why we do this. It's to use Halloween as an excuse to introduce the paranormal again, the supernatural and the metaphysical, whatever angle, so I can tell the story of reality from the Bible once again. Will you stand with me? Father, we come before you tonight. I don't know where people are with you, whether they used to go to church, whether Christianity was a tribal ritual thing because mom made me go. But no one comes to New York to be holy. If you want to be holy, just could have went tons, Missouri, or Wisconsin. They have InterVarsity campus right there, headquarters. But Father, New York is a place of exploration. Tons of people searching. We want to use this opportunity tonight to conquer our fear and shame, even of doubts we have about you, and have the courage to ask those questions, and even pray for you to answer like you did for Moses. Because, hey, you don't want to be at those brunches asking those questions, okay? I want to eat my brunch, you know? Will you lift your hands with me as a sign of surrender to God? I don't know where you are with God, but you can say, God, I want to, like Moses, experience you and have you confront my reality. And help me make sense of my story with your story.
Jesus, lover of my soul. Jesus, lover of my soul. Consuming fire is in your gaze. Jesus, I want you to know I will follow you for all my days. For no one else in history is like you. History itself belongs to you. You're the Alpha and Omega. You have loved me, and I will share eternity with you.
It's all about you.
It's all about you. Jesus, and all this is for you, for your glory and your fame. It's not about me, as if you should do things my way. You alone are God, and I surrender to your ways.
May the grace of God and the love of the Father and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you now and forever. All God's people say, Amen. God bless you. Have a great week.